Amazing turn of events. A broken millionaire gives a ride to a homeless mom and receives a touch of hope. Charlie's aging sedan sputtered through the rain-soaked streets of his childhood town, the sound of tires skimming over puddles echoing the turmoil in his chest. This small Midwestern town was once an afterthought, a place of laughter and dreams. Now, it felt more like a graveyard of fading ambitions. The tech world felt 1,000,000 miles away. His once illustrious career had crumbled under the weight of economic downturns and bad decisions. Ambition faded into despair, replaced by insistent bills and the haunting presence of an empty bank account. As he drove, a flicker of movement caught his eye. A woman, drenched and desperate, cradling 2 small children against her side. Charlie's heart constricted. He wrestled with the urge to pull over. Guilt tugged at him harder than the grasping claws of his own failures. What if someone saw? What would they think of a man who had tasted success helping someone so far down the economic ladder? Was this truly an act of compassion, or was it a desperate attempt to soothe his guilty conscience? He parked and opened the passenger door, the rain cascading like a curtain around them as they squeezed into the cramped car. The smell of wet clothes filled the air, and Charlie's heart ached for her, for them. "Where are you headed?" he faltered, voice heavy with uncertainty. "To the shelter, if you could," she replied, her voice barely above a whisper, the weight of the world in her tone. Her name was Sophia, a name that felt warm despite the chill in the air. As they drove, Charlie listened to her story, the loss of stability and dreams echoing in his own heart. This woman was not just a statistic, she was a mother, a fighter, her resilience palpable, yet doubt clawed at him. How far did the condescension of his good intentions stretch? Was he helping or patronizing? Before they could settle into their shared silence, Charlie's phone buzzed and a text lit up the screen. "Nice photo op you got there. Just helping the homeless, huh? What do you think people will say?" The message from his so-called friend was like a knife, deepening an already festering wound. "Am I doing this for them or for myself?" he questioned internally, muscles tensing as the weight of judgment loomed. The familiarity of fear settled in. Public perception had driven him away from who he used to be, and here it was again, threatening to pull him back. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Sophia's laughter with her kids sparked a deep-rooted nostalgia. Memories of summer days and family dinners flooding back. Suddenly, his heart ached with years of yearning for genuine connection. As they neared the shelter, Charlie grappled with the reality of his life spiraling into a welling darkness, the convergence of 2 radically different worlds weighing heavily on him. He faced a choice: turn away or step forward into the uncomfortable unknown. With moments ticking down, Charlie's fingers gripped the steering wheel as he wrestled with the shadows of doubt. Would he be strong enough to embrace this journey of purpose, or would he retreat into the shell of his former self, letting the judgment of others dictate who he could become? As the shelter loomed closer, a storm brewed within him, swirling uncertainty and fear. What if this was his chance for redemption, or would helping Sophia only serve to dredge him deeper into self-loathing? The future shimmered ahead, uncertain yet vibrant. But one truth stood firm amidst the chaos: embracing the complex journey of human connection would eclipse the hollow success he'd once valued. The shelter loomed closer, an uninspiring facade that belied the warmth within. Charlie's heart raced as he parked. The harsh fluorescent lights reflected off the asphalt, illuminating cracks his life seemed to mirror. He glanced at Sophia, who was now soothing her children, a moment of calm before the storm of uncertainty. "Thank you for this," she whispered, sincerity permeating her voice. It struck him, unexpected, like a raindrop breaking the surface of still water. He wanted to reply, to somehow articulate the whirlwind of gratitude and guilt swirling inside, but words evaded him. Instead he nodded, feeling a swell of emotion he wasn't prepared to confront. As they walked into the shelter, the atmosphere shifted. The smell of stale coffee and the soft murmur of voices enveloped him. Charlie's discomfort spiked. He was stepping into a world far removed from polished boardrooms and tech conferences, a stark reminder of where he once stood, on a pedestal of success that now felt precarious. Sophia's fingers tightened around her children's hands as they approached the intake desk, and Charlie felt drawn to her fortitude. It sparked something new within him, a stirring that rejected the apathy he had embraced since the fall. He couldn't just drop her off and leave. He had to connect, to understand. Maybe in that process he would rediscover a part of himself, long lost to the void of his former life. "Can I help with anything?" he asked, the words slipping out before he could think them through. The intake worker looked up from her clipboard, surprise evident in her eyes. "We always need volunteers, especially during the cold months. If you're serious." "I am," he said, cutting her off before doubt could splinter his resolve. That single phrase lodged itself deep within him, echoing louder than the cacophony of his internal critique. Within minutes, Sophia was settling her children at a table with crayons, her gaze softening as she saw Charlie pivot into action, rolling up his sleeves to help set up the pantry. He fumbled through canned goods nervously, conscious of the stares and whispered conversations flitting among those who knew him, or knew of him. What would they think? Their eyes scrutinizing the man who used to navigate the upper echelons of society, now laboring in a shelter. But something shifted in that moment, transforming his internal battle into a burgeoning sense of purpose. Charlie organized the shelves, and slowly the memories began to flow. The aroma of fresh coffee during his 3 a.m. coding sessions, the thrill of innovation, the camaraderie with colleagues. Yet the joy felt distant, overshadowed by a suffocating weight of regret and relentless self-doubt. Helping these families unearthed fragments of his identity he thought were buried. Alongside compassion, empathy flickered alive. Hours slipped by and fatigue set in, yet Charlie's heart raced with exhilaration. He realized that connection wasn't just a matter of social currency. It filled the empty void he had felt for so long. He caught Sophia's eye again. In her, he found strength. She was fighting for her family, fiercely navigating the turmoil of her life. "Your turn to share a laugh," she called over. And for the first time in ages, he felt like he could. Charlie offered a half-hearted joke about his inability to stack cans, and Sophia's laughter rang out like a bell, vibrant and real. In that moment, the sterile walls of the shelter transformed into a sanctuary where sorrow and joy coexisted. But beneath the laughter and chatter, shadows loomed. The specter of his old life still clung to him like a well-worn coat, heavy and suffocating. As night crept in, Charlie found himself standing outside, staring into the darkness with determination blooming in his chest. He needed more than just this moment. He craved a path forward. What if this was a way to reclaim his purpose, not just as a man who had lost everything, but as someone willing to rebuild and grow? But just as hope ignited within him, an unread message pinged on his phone, and he froze. The name flashing across the screen was familiar, yet unwelcome. It was time to confront his past, and he knew it could pull him back into the abyss he had been inching away from. The weight of his choices pressed heavily on him. Would he risk everything, stepping into a territory peppered with the potential for failure and judgment? Charlie drew in a breath, steeling himself for what lay ahead. The future was not yet written, and with it came uncertainty. But one thing seemed clear. The battle within him was just beginning. Charlie's phone buzzed insistently in his pocket, jolting him from the possibilities he had just begun to embrace. The screen lit up like a flare in the darkness, and he hesitated as he stared at the name that had haunted him since his downfall. Michael, his former business partner and the embodiment of the life he had lost, was now a thoroughly unwelcome bridge to his past. With a barely controlled exhale, he tapped the screen, setting the message to read. A decision both impulsive and necessary. The words flashed before him. "We need to talk. It's about the company." Charlie's heart raced, torn between an overwhelming urge to block the number and the gnawing curiosity ignited by that simple sentence. As he stood alone outside the shelter, the winds of change howled around him, a stark contrast to the warmth of connection he had just experienced inside. Charlie's mind wrestled with the fundamental question. Could he face the echoes of who he had been without unraveling the progress he was beginning to make? What value did his past have now, except as a cautionary tale? Taking a deep breath, he made a choice. He would engage, not just with Michael, who inevitably represented the corporate machinations that had consumed him, but he also had to confront the part of himself that still craved validation from that world. It was time to reestablish his boundaries and redefine what success truly meant for him. As he stepped back inside, the comforting hum of activity greeted him. The familiarity of the bustling pantry and the canvas of children's drawings scattered across tables helped settle his racing thoughts. Charlie noticed Sophia organizing with a zeal that rivaled any high-pressure project he had ever managed at his tech firm. It struck him that success could wear many masks, and perhaps hers was the one he needed to adopt. "Hey, you okay?" Sophia approached, concern flickering across her features. "Yeah, just thinking," he replied, his voice steadier than he anticipated. "What's on your mind?" She pressed gently, clearly attuned to the nuance of his expression. Charlie struggled for a moment, weighing his instincts against the fear of vulnerability. Finally, he recognized the necessity of honesty. "It's about my past. A message from someone I used to work with, and I'm not sure where that fits into my life now." Sophia nodded thoughtfully, the weight of her experience echoing silently in her eyes. "We all have pieces of our past that hold us back, but it's how we choose to move forward that depends on us. What do you want to do?" Her question hung in the air like a tangible thread, illuminating the uncertainty that had coiled around his heart just moments before. She had reframed his narration, shifting his focus from fear to intention. "I think I want to find a way to make my experience matter, without going backward." Words resonated within him like a newly struck chord, and he felt the raw power that possibility could elicit. It was more than just a chance for redemption. It was a chance to craft a new narrative, one that intertwined hope and authenticity, navigating the chasm between past mistakes and future aspirations. "The best way to predict the future is to create it," he murmured, casting his mind towards the framework of new ambitions. Sophia smiled, understanding in her eyes. "Then let's help build something worthwhile." Just as he nodded, a sudden chill swept through the air, carrying the scent of impending change. Charlie felt his phone vibrate again, the urgency pulsating through the fabric of his pocket, as another message from Michael threatened to disrupt the moment. The weight of the choice loomed heavily, a precipice at which he must stand firm. Would this be a leap into stagnation, or a brave new chapter in embrace of uncertainty? Charlie turned sharply to face Sophia, a new determination igniting in his core. "What do you think a successful venture would look like in this space? What is needed?" As they leaned into an imaginative dialogue ignited by shared value, Charlie felt the path ahead crystallizing, though the shadow of his old life loomed ominously. He was on the brink, and while he had moved forward, the final message awaited him, threatening to pull him back into the orbit of the life he thought he had escaped. Would he pick the phone up again, or take the first step towards rewriting his narrative? Charlie's heart thumped in his chest as he contemplated the messages awaiting him. The digital chime echoed in his mind, a constant reminder of the world he had distanced himself from. Michael's name acted like a lit fuse, threatening to explode the newfound stability he had begun to build. Yet, when he turned back to Sophia, her determination was contagious. She arranged the supplies on the table with a deftness that reminded him of the days when he used to rally his team around a project deadline. The chaos of the moment didn't subdue her spirit, it fueled it. The spark of her passion rekindled something deep within him, an echo of who he had once been. "What if we create a project that showcases the stories people have? A bridge from the past into potential?" Charlie proposed, his voice gaining momentum. His mind whirled with images of testimonials collected from those he worked with, their tales born from struggle, resilience, and hope. "Absolutely," Sophia replied, her eyes brightening. "You could create digital platforms, maybe even a blog. Sharing experiences could inspire others to transform their narratives. Each word from Sophia seemed to peel away layers of his doubt, revealing a clarity Charlie hadn't anticipated. He envisioned a mosaic of stories illuminated by the stark honesty of their narratives. In that moment, the tug of Michael's text dissipated, and he felt grounded. His past, rather than a shadow haunting him, could be a source of inspiration. This idea could bring both meaning and empowerment to others. But as thoughts tangled with ethereal notions of triumph, a darker thread crawled into his mind. Could he truly shed the skin of his former self? What if engaging with Michael meant diminishing the importance of this newfound purpose? Charlie momentarily quelled the apprehension, focusing instead on Sophia's unwavering support. "Charlie, think about it," she said, her gaze steady. "Having lived that life, you have the authority to lead the conversations that matter. You have the power to craft change, not just for yourself but for others. That's an unshakable legacy." He swallowed hard, grappling with the promise of a heavy mantle draped across his shoulders. Legacy held weight, either as an anchor or a kite in the wind. Just then, the phone buzzed again, the steady rhythm a drumbeat of impending decision. Charlie's hand hovered over the screen, the urge to silence it clawing at him. He glanced at Sophia, helplessly anchored between two worlds. "What if?" he started, his voice trailing off as an idea flickered to life. "What if I hear him out? I can listen without committing. Perhaps there's something in it for me that could benefit this initiative." Sophia's smile faltered, concern shadowing her features. "Just be careful, Charlie. Delving back into that realm can consume time and energy. Will it serve your growth or just drag you back?" Her words cut deep, reframing his internal dilemma. The memories of long nights spent on the brink of burnout mingled with fears of being drawn back into chaos. But maybe it wasn't about succumbing to the past. If approached correctly, could this be an opportunity for mitigation, rather than a return to the blistering fires that burned him once before? Taking a deep breath, Charlie resolved to hear Michael out. Each opportunity had its lessons. He couldn't ignore the possibility that this interaction might reveal truths dormant within him. Perhaps it was time to confront the elusive specter of business ambition. One last time, fully armed with the perspective he'd gained. As he braced himself for the call, the conflicting currents of apprehension and excitement surged within him. Would this meeting pull him down a dark path once again, or could it forge a new trail toward authenticity? Momentarily distracted, Charlie's mind churned with possibilities. Unbeknownst to him, the decision he was about to make would ignite a chain of events that could redefine not only his future, but the futures of many others as well. With the phone in hand, he stood on the threshold of a choice laden with weight and potential. The moment had arrived. Would he take a step back into a cesspool of corporate ambition, or step forward into an uncommon armor against the tides of temptation? As he pressed the call button, the question loomed. What awaited him on the other side of that connection? Charlie's heartbeat quickened as the phone rang, each tone stretching a fragile moment that felt destined to unravel everything. The familiar chime echoed memories of pressured negotiations and backroom whispers, yet he was no longer that precariously naive man thrumming his life away in endless cycles of ambition. Deep down, he was prepared to be met with more than just the urgency of a business deal. He craved clarity about his past choices. "Charlie?" Michael's voice crackled through the speaker, unraveling the tension in the air. It was equal parts warmth and sharpness, a siren call back to the life Charlie had left behind. "I need to talk. There's something big brewing that you'll want to be a part of." Charlie paused, grappling with the undercurrents. He sensed Michael's unrelenting drive, masked beneath a coat of urgency. Yet, what was he bringing to the table? Genuine opportunity or pretense soaked in desperation? "Let's meet," Charlie replied, forcing himself to embrace the discomfort. "I'm willing to hear you out." The words felt foreign, yet liberating, almost like breaking the surface of water into fresh air after suffocating in a deep dive. As the call ended, Sophia's eyes bore into him, swirling with both uncertainty and encouragement. "Are you sure about this?" she ventured softly, the hesitation in her voice an echo of the concerns he held internally. "No," he admitted, a rare honesty escaping his lips. "But I think I need to be sure." I need to confront him as much as my old dreams. With each word, Charlie's conviction hardened. He needed to dissect the remnants of Michael's influence. They felt like splinters lodged in his psyche. Perhaps the meeting could unlock parts of himself he had long tried to ignore. The businessman, the innovator, the dreamer. They arranged to meet at a cafe that had become a haven for local creatives, filled with the aroma of roasted beans and the sounds of spirited discussions. Whether sanctuary or cage, it was a place where he could dissect what lulled him into a stupor of unrealistic expectations in the corporate realm. As he settled into a booth, his eyes wandered to the patrons around him, a painter sketching in a notebook, a young entrepreneur animatedly typing away, a group deep in discussion. Each carried a purpose, a drive that mingled with the very air they breathed. Charlie felt the flickering warmth of their energy buoying him, reminding him of the collaborative spirit that had once fueled his own ambitions. When Michael strode in, the atmosphere shifted. His presence was magnetic, commanding. But Charlie was no longer the impressionable protege. Today, he wore his past like armor, probing instead of being consumed by it. "Charlie, good to see you," Michael said, sliding into the booth opposite him. "We have a unique opportunity. Investment, community service, innovation, all of it." "So you've moved on from just aspiration to ambition?" Charlie countered, anchoring their exchange. "Of course, but this is bigger than that. Rebuilding reputations, supporting communities, it's a unique angle," Michael pressed, leaning forward. Charlie leaned back, meditating on the both excitement and skepticism swirling in his gut. Michael was right. There was an allure in revisiting success, but now it was tied to potential outcomes beyond profits. This could be about driving real change. But what was the cost? "Are you proposing this for you or for them?" Charlie questioned, probing deeper into the real intent behind Michael's plan, hoping to unearth the truth beneath the polished surface. Silence enveloped them for a moment, Charlie's query casting a long shadow over their talk. He wasn't merely going to slide back in, he would dissect every layer of their interaction open. As the conversation unfolded, Charlie realized he was not there to abandon his newfound purpose, but rather to sharpen it against the whetstone of his past. Could he forge ahead, with a vision of storytelling and change, while simultaneously challenging the compelling seduction of corporate success? The clock ticked down as urgency began to merge with potential. Each of Michael's words presented a challenge, a deeper level of decision-making he hadn't anticipated entering this meeting. Charlie was surrounded by murky waters, his future coursing in directions as blurry as he could imagine. What if, instead of being drawn back into chaos, Charlie could seize this moment to glean insight that could propel both Michael's initiatives and his mission into an unexpected alignment? A tight smile played on his lips. The shadows of his past were not begging to ensnare him. They were reminders of what lay at stake. With that revelation bloomed clarity, an unlocking of sorts. "Tell me more," he said, his voice steady, dismissing both apprehension and ambition as he set his sights on a new horizon. The stakes were high, but so was the potential for transformation. For both of them. As Michael's eyes lit up with excitement, Charlie felt the momentum shift. It was a beginning, not an end. But what awaited them at the crossroads of ambition and integrity? The time had come to unravel which truth would lead Charlie to redefine not just his own path, but perhaps something greater than himself. The cafe buzzed with an energy that mirrored the turmoil swirling within Charlie. As Michael detailed his vision, painting a picture of profitable endeavors married to social impact, Charlie's mind danced between temptation and trepidation. Was this his opportunity to regain a foothold in the world he had abandoned, or merely a trap set by old ambitions that had left him bruised? "I see where you're coming from, but you need to understand that this isn't just a business opportunity," Michael implored, his hands gesturing emphatically. "We're talking about revitalizing communities, creating jobs, changing lives. It's transformative." Charlie felt the pull, the promise almost seductive in its allure. Yet beneath the surface layer of enthusiasm, caution lingered like a shadow. With every passing moment, he weighed the potential impact of re-engagement against the cost of losing himself again. How much of Michael's passion was rooted in genuine altruism versus the sustained chase for success? What about accountability? he challenged, honing in on the crux of their dialogue. How do we ensure that the benefits actually reach those who need them without falling into the usual bureaucratic muck? Michael bristled, the crack in his composure revealing the pressure Charlie was exerting. We'll create systems that allow for transparent oversight, he insisted, his eyes narrowing as he leaned closer. We can't afford to falter. The stakes are too high, for both of us. Charlie couldn't help but notice how Michael had shifted. He was no longer the charismatic mentor, but rather a man backed against the wall. The energy in the room felt charged with unspoken stakes, each word they exchanged fracturing the cordial atmosphere into something much more vulnerable. Tell me how you're going to navigate the challenges that come with this, Charlie pressed, infusing his inquiries with a steely resolve. Your previous ventures were all about appearances, Michael. What makes you think this time will be different? He leaned back, watching the onslaught of emotions flash across Michael's face. Frustration, realization, adaptability. Each reaction told Charlie a story of its own, laying bare the tangled web of ambition and past failures encircling his former mentor. Maybe I need this too, Michael admitted slowly. There it was, an admission shrouded in vulnerability. In that moment, Charlie saw the man as an equal rather than a guiding figure. Perhaps Michael was as lost as he had been, grasping for purpose amid the clamor of ambition. Their conversation turned inward, exploring not just the logistics of the promised plan, but the yearning for redemption, a force that pulled them closer once more. Could this pursuit, fraught with mistakes, illuminate the path to genuine change for both of them? Just as the air thickened with potential and uncertainty, a pang of realization struck Charlie. This was not simply a chance to resurrect Michael's ambitions, it was a precipice, an opportunity for him to carve a new identity amidst old habits. A waitress approached to refill their coffee cups, her bright smile a stark contrast to the weighty discussion. As she moved away, the faint laughter of patrons seeped into the hushed atmosphere, reminding Charlie of the warmth of human connection he had almost forgotten. He stared into his cup, considering the fragile balance between ambition and integrity. If this is truly about change, we need to outline our commitment. I want in, but on my terms, on principles that matter. Transparency, accountability, and most importantly, purpose. Michael nodded slowly, seeming to digest the shift in dynamics. Charlie could sense an agreement forming, yet uncertainty loomed larger than ever. What prerequisites would truly forge the alliance they needed without compromising their core values? The tension between them transformed into possibilities, the shadow of doubt gradually giving way to a sliver of light. It was an awakening, one that whispered to Charlie of growth and direction, a yearning to not just belong again, but to be instrumental in forging a path forward that resonated with authenticity. Their discussion continued on, vividly intersecting aspiration with caution. As Charlie's resolve deepened, a different kind of determination emerged, the kind born from the understanding that his measure of success had shifted. But lurking within that transformation was the lingering question. Could he sustain this new resolve in a world that had previously dulled his ambition? As the sun dipped lower outside, casting a soft glow across the cafe, Charlie felt the pulse of potential thrumming in the air, intoxicating, yet daunting. He knew the road ahead would be riddled with obstacles, as the danger of past failures lurked close behind him. Let's take the next step, he said finally, his voice imbued with a tempered conviction. His fingers danced nervously on the table. He felt the tremor of fear and exhilaration meld into one. If he was to redefine the trajectory of his ambitions, he would have to embrace this path despite uncertainty. What revelations awaited as they navigated this uncharted terrain together? Would his resolve sustain under pressure, or would the allure of old patterns cast a long shadow on his resurgence? As Michael swept his gaze over the cafe, the possibilities hung thick in the air, and Charlie's newfound journey, tinged with promise and risk, lay before him like an undiscovered map awaiting bold exploration. Would it lead him toward transformation, or further entangle him in the very ambition he had once sought to escape? Sitting in the cafe, Charlie felt a storm of conflicting emotions swirl beneath his tentative commitment. The exhilaration of newfound purpose fought against the specter of past failures pacing in the shadows of his mind. He glanced at Michael, whose eager expressions resonated with unpolished ambition. In that moment, something shifted inside Charlie, a whisper of clarity amidst the storm. There was no denying it. This was more than just business. It was a reckoning. He hadn't stepped into this world to become a mere puppet in a game of profit and loss. He wanted accountability, a framework that didn't prioritize expedience over ethics. And yet, could he enforce this from the ground up, or was he merely setting himself up for another failure? Let's sketch out a clear strategy then, he proposed, abruptly redirecting the course of their dialogue. We need specific metrics to track our impact, weekly reviews, budget transparency, everything on the table. If this is going to work, we can't just wing it. Michael nodded, albeit with a look that betrayed doubt. Maybe he had anticipated a less rigorous approach. Charlie pressed on. We can utilize technology to create a real-time dashboard, something where we can see feedback from the community as projects roll out. If changes are needed, we make them swiftly. We owe it to ourselves and them. The words tumbled from Charlie with an urgency that surprised him. This wasn't just a knee-jerk reaction to regain control. It was a manifestation of his desire to change how he was perceived, not just by the world, but by himself. Charlie fought against his instincts to retreat into cynicism. Instead, he leaned into this idea of accountability as a living document, a pledge to those he sought to serve. I can set that up, Michael conceded slowly, eyes narrowing as if calculating the scope of Charlie's ambition. That kind of work takes time, and if it's going to be effective, we'll need some serious clarity on accountability structures. Let's map it out. Isn't that what we've been avoiding? Charlie challenged, energized by the back and forth. We need to be more than just a response to old mistakes. We need a mission that transcends them. Otherwise, what's the point? As the sun dipped lower, bathing the cafe in hues of amber, Charlie felt the heaviness in the air transform into a sense of possibility. For the first time in years, clarity brought focus to his ambition. It seeped through the cracks of doubt, illuminating a path fraught with obstacles yet ripe with potential. A wellspring of ideas poured forth. Partnering with local nonprofits, establishing mentorship programs, expanding educational resources, each proposal bolstered his resolve, the rhythm of his thoughts growing more determined with every beat. The once quiet yearning to belong shifted into a fierce drive to make a difference, but in that moment of fire, a creeping doubt gnawed at him. The bureaucratic pitfalls, the hesitation of investors, the lethargy of unmotivated teams. It was just as easy to fall back into old habits, wasn't it? Could he truly transcend the familiar quicksand of half-hearted efforts and ineffective solutions? Okay, let's take a step back, Michael said, a hint of caution in his voice. We can't just jump into this without a foundation. How do we ensure that this vision isn't just an idealistic dream, but a concrete plan that we can stick to? Charlie's heart raced. This was the moment to solidify his newfound sense of purpose or watch it slip away like so many opportunities before. We start by living those principles ourselves, he asserted. If we can't commit fully, we're already defeatist. Let's focus on building a core team aligned with these values first. We need self-starters, people who won't shy away from tough conversations. Michael seemed to consider this, and for a heartbeat, they found a shared resolve in mutual respect. Charlie's mind raced, thoughts colliding like freight trains. He didn't just want to support a vision, he wanted to embody it. But as he envisioned the potential growth, past the pulls of resource availability and investor interest, another question loomed closer. Would he have the fortitude to sustain this commitment amid inevitable resistance? The coffee grew cold in their cups, a reminder of time slipping past them as possibilities floated around like echoes. This wasn't merely a conversation, it was a defining moment, one that could alter the trajectory of both their lives. Are you ready for the hard work ahead? Michael finally asked, his tone imbued with seriousness. Ready or not, this is the path I'm choosing. Let's make it count, Charlie replied, firm conviction lining his voice. Together they plunged into discussions, yet with every exhilarating concept shared, unease lingered like a tightened noose. what awaited them when the idealistic facade crumbled under the weight of reality. As night fell, casting long shadows across their ambitions, Charlie felt a tingle beneath the surface. The journey was only just beginning, and with every step forward, the horizon of uncertainty expanded before him. Would this newfound partnership ignite change, or would the past re-emerge with insidious strength, pulling him back into old habits right when he thought he had broken free? The days following their ambitious conversation blurred together, each one marked by a growing intensity, as Charlie committed himself to this new venture. The weight of expectation hovered heavily above him, both from within and outside. He immersed himself in the practicalities of establishing a framework, piecing together the operational backbone of the nascent organization, from late-night brainstorming sessions to early morning revisions of pitch decks. The sights and sounds of the bustling city outside served as a constant reminder of the urgency he felt. In the midst of the chaos, Charlie also grappled with an underlying tension. Despite reeling from the enthusiasm and determination ignited during his conversations with Michael, there lay an ever-present anxiety. Would the structure he created withstand the unpredictable tides of ambition? His mind spiraled with possible scenarios: an investor hesitating, a skilled team member opting out, or worse yet, rooting himself in the old cycles of complacency he detested so fervently. Doubts clawed at him during moments alone. It was the specter of failure whispering reminders of his past missteps. To counter this rising tide of uncertainty, he took solace in action. Charlie began reaching out to potential partners, sifting through lists of local nonprofits that aligned with his mission. The act of forging these connections provided small victories, each propelling him deeper into a landscape where accountability wasn't just an abstract ideal, but a tangible possibility. In his meetings, he spoke passionately, laying out the vision he had crafted while overreaching was always a risk he was willing to take. Gradually, his outreach led to successful collaborations. Local organizations began to show interest in joining forces. Charlie noticed the embers of a supportive network flickering alive, the gravity of their shared goals resonating in the room during every collaborative meeting. Yet even amid the gathering momentum, there was still something intangible he was struggling to articulate, something that pulsed beneath the surface, waiting for the right moment to explode. As the inaugural meeting of his newly formed team approached, nerves jabbed restlessly at him. He found himself staring at a blank presentation slide filled with vibrant logos and slogans that still felt too ambitious to convey the essence of what he hoped to achieve. Was he setting them all up for failure by leading them into this venture born from desperate hope? What if I can't translate my vision into something actionable? What if I lose them, and myself, right at the start? The questions echoed in his mind, demanding answers he wasn't sure he could provide. On the day of the meeting, Charlie arrived early, pacing the room as though the walls made of glass would somehow withstand the pressures of his doubts. Michael arrived, his demeanor energetic yet attentive, and one glance at Charlie revealed the whirlwind of thoughts in his mind. "Why the stress?" Michael asked, cocking an eyebrow. "It all feels too big," Charlie admitted, running a hand through his hair. "What if I can't inspire them? What if they see me as just another idealist festering in a dream? Or they could see you as the catalyst they've been waiting for. Just remember, every great mission starts with someone who dares to hope." Charlie took a breath, grappling with the reassurance but unable to entirely quell the storm within. When the team filed in, greeted by hopeful smiles and hesitant curiosity, he stood before them, aware of the weight resting across his shoulders. "Thank you all for being here," he began, voice steady but heart racing. "I know we're stepping into uncharted waters together, but I believe in our collective capacity to create real impact." There, in that moment, the internal conflict crystallized. This was not just a professional milestone, it was also deeply personal. Standing before them, he recognized the paradox of leadership. It required vulnerability and strength in equal measures. Charlie had to confront his fears, wielding them as tools for authenticity rather than cages for his ambition. As discussions blossomed and their ideas intermingled like a vibrant tapestry, he felt a spark, a flicker of certainty kindling within him. Among them, he was not defined by previous failures. Here lay a fresh start, a crucible for collective momentum to flourish. But just as he began settling into the rhythm of this new chapter, something unexpected caught his eye. A notification pinged on his phone, revealing an email from an anonymous sender, subject line: "The truth about your partner." The room transformed in an instant. The air turned static. His heart raced once more, now to the beat of a new, disquieting uncertainty. What did this mean? Would this revelation unravel everything they had just begun to build? Steeling himself for what lay ahead, Charlie braced for the challenge that approached. The real test awaited just beyond the horizon of hope. Would the unfolding truth strengthen their resolve, or would it plunge them into chaos at the very genesis of their aspirations? Charlie's hand trembled slightly as he unlocked his phone to read the email. The sender remained anonymous, but the very subject line instilled a chill in him. He hadn't anticipated turbulence so soon. What had begun as a promising venture now harbored shadows of doubt that threatened to choke off the freshly formed bonds of trust within his team. He forced himself to breathe through the rising tide of anxiety, seeking clarity amid the storm of emotions swirling in his mind. It was crucial not to panic, not to let suspicion cloud his judgment when the true nature of the message remained uncertain. Pulling himself back into the moment, he glanced at his team, their voices a murmur of enthusiasm as they exchanged ideas across the table. He couldn't allow this distraction to derail the momentum they had just built together. "Focus," he whispered under his breath, grounding himself. As the discussions progressed, Charlie struggled to keep his attention from drifting back to the email. Each chuckle, each revelation shared by a team member, morphed into delightful notes of a symphony, but beneath it all lay an undercurrent of apprehension. He needed to maintain the atmosphere of openness, the very foundation upon which this venture rested. And yet, the weight of this unknown secret loomed larger with every passing minute. Despite the fertile exchange of ideas blooming before him, paranoia began to sprout. The mention of certain objectives took on a sinister tone as he pondered whether they were steering toward a shared vision or veering into unknown territory he had yet to grasp. In a flurry of instinct, he decided to momentarily excuse himself. "Excuse me a moment," he said, rising from the table. He stepped into the hallway, where he could gather his thoughts away from the teasing pressures of the group. Alone, the email's contents clawed at him, nudged his sense of urgency. He felt the pull of responsibility spiral dangerously close to overwhelming him. Why did he insist on being the person in charge, a role that amplified every misstep? The uncertainty replayed in his mind as he opened the email, scanning the few lines that promised revelation, but only deepened his internal disquiet. "Your partner isn't who he seems," it read. There was no elaboration, just a breadcrumb of insinuation that clawed at Charlie's inherent need for trust. Could Michael embody some measure of deceit? The doubt knitted a tapestry of every conversation they had engaged in, each interaction dissected through an increasingly suspicious lens. No, he had to resist this spiraling descent into paranoia. It could unravel everything he hoped to achieve. A descent into mistrust, paranoia, and futile speculation. Pacing now, Charlie grappled with the vicious cycle of fear muddling his focus. The odds were strikingly high. He either leaned into the possibility of betrayal and shattered his own endeavor, or surrendered his doubt and forged ahead, seeing potential in the partnership he had gambled on. Exhaling deeply, he chose to embrace the latter. He slipped his phone back into his pocket and returned to the meeting, heart resolved to confront the unease ripening within him. They were interdependent now. He had to transcend this fear and venture forward. Leadership couldn't blossom in a place rife with suspicion. As he resumed his seat, Charlie forged a new intention. He would cultivate transparency, not just with his team, but with Michael too, no matter how difficult that conversation would be. He would unveil this discord, no matter how deeply it unsettled him. Together they would ascend or fail, but there would be unity in that choice. "Let's regroup and outline our goals for the next quarter," he stated firmly, trying to reignite the collaborative energy in the room. As the conversation ebbed and flowed, Charlie felt his determination returning, a phoenix rising from doubt's ashes. At the core of this engagement was resilience, an unyielding spirit to navigate whatever had been unearthed. The past didn't define him. Every moment offered space for renewal. Little did he know that Michael had noticed his absence and the strange tension in Charlie's demeanor. As they interwove their plans, the need to confront the elephant in the room crept ever closer to the light. Would this newfound resolve enable Charlie to uncover the truth? Or would it expose the cracks that had begun to plague their partnership? Charlie sensed that the storm was far from over. Each meeting would be a delicate dance, but a confrontation loomed on the horizon, threatening to shift their fates. The moment of revelation awaited, pregnant with possibility and peril. The following week saw Charlie tirelessly navigating the waters of ambition and uncertainty as the team embarked on their mission. Each strategic meeting unfolded layers of possibility, finally transforming ambition into action. The synergy resonated through the room, igniting a fire fueled by shared purpose and newfound camaraderie that he had longed for since his downfall. Yet despite the prevailing momentum, the email lingered at the back of his mind, an unwelcome specter demanding attention. The anonymous taunt loomed over him like a dark cloud, and each conversation with Michael dripped with unaddressed tension. Charlie grappled with the weight of uncertainty, each suppressed whisper gnawing at his resolve to face the uncomfortable truth that had yet to materialize. As the days rolled into weeks, Charlie dove deeper into establishing partnerships and igniting local support. He felt the reassuring warmth of success as allies joined their cause. Nonprofits and local businesses rallied to propose initiatives that transcended mere profit motives. A wave of validation washed over him. This was the impact he had yearned to create. Each success reminded him that he was on a path toward meaningful transformation. But as the high tides of hope surged, the anxiety over Michael and the haunting remark from the email swelled inside. One fateful afternoon, while reviewing proposals with the team, he decided it was time to confront his unease. "Team, appreciate the input today," he said, his voice steady. "We've made incredible strides forward, yet I feel it's important we address some underlying dynamics as well. I'd like to bring up a conversation with Michael." A hush fell over the vibrant atmosphere as heads turned to him. Charlie recognized he had crossed into uncharted territory, but he needed to forge a foundation built on honesty. "Michael, I value your partnership, but there's a tension I can't ignore, and I think we need to discuss it openly," he continued, watching closely for Michael's response. Stillness hung in the air. The team shifted, uneasy tension threading through the room. "Charlie, where's this coming from?" Michael asked, brow furrowing, concern bubbling just beneath the surface. "An email I received, an anonymous tip suggesting you may not be who you say you are," Charlie stated, steadying his resolve to remain candid. "The implications concern me, and I need to address it directly. Is there something you need to share?" For a brief moment, silence hung like a pendulum, swinging ominously between them. Michael ran a hand over his face, a glimmer of vulnerability breaking through the shield of confidence he had maintained. "Listen," he started slowly, grounding himself back. "I didn't come from an ideal situation either. I thought we were moving beyond our pasts. But if you want the truth, I do have debts, financial ones. I've overextended, and the pressure to succeed has clouded my decisions. But I've been in it for the mission, not just the profit." The weight of Michael's admission settled into Charlie's chest. It was a palpable form of honesty that alleviated the unease, but also painted the complex picture of the man he had begun to rely on. "Thank you for your honesty," Charlie replied, relief lacing his voice. "I want this mission to succeed, for both of us and for those we serve. But we need to unearth these shadows, not let them linger." At that moment, the air shifted. Vulnerability presented a new pathway. The team, witnessing their leaders embrace that candidness, began to echo the embrace of a layered discussion around aspirations, accountability, and boundaries. That pivotal moment of confrontation carved out a sacred space for authenticity, reinvigorating the bonds within their fledgling organization. They began brainstorming ways to facilitate greater transparency, embedding accountability into the very fabric of their operations. As the weeks rolled on, Charlie harnessed the fire within him, determined to transform not just his own narrative, but also the essence of their alliance. Each day carried the promise of growth, rejuvenating his commitment to this mission. Charlie expanded their initiatives, overseeing mentorship programs, community engagement projects, and a platform for stories from those they aimed to uplift. The once crumbling millionaire felt like a phoenix rising from the ashes of self-doubt, embracing each imperfect step. As the momentum blossomed, the sun shone brighter along the path ahead. Michael learned to lean into collaborative initiatives with renewed dedication, compelled forward by the clarity of shared purpose. Just when it seemed smooth sailing, the automation of their impact dashboard unearthed insights that suddenly revealed areas for potential improvement. Instead of clinging to the fragile game of perfection as he had in his past, Charlie embraced every revenue bounce-back opportunity as triumph. The rain-soaked joy of community stories surfaced like poetry to his ears. Tales of hardship and resilience illuminated like found threads, weaving through their mission. Each triumph affirmed his evolution. He had grappled with the past only to emerge with a greater understanding of humility. In moments of self-reflection, uniquely juxtaposed with his fledgling successes, Charlie found himself embracing what success really meant. For in the rediscovery of his sense of purpose, he achieved far more than tangible results. He gained the acceptance of his own vulnerability and the understanding that giving back to the community carried the essence of true achievement. In return, their journey was divinely punctuated by community impact, and Charlie found himself, at last, recognized as the heart and driving force behind the project, finally holding a position of solid confidence and renewed conviction. Such was the transformative journey that had begun with doubt, but blossomed into undeniable achievement. Charlie would carry forward, embraced by purpose anchored in purpose itself, no longer a shadow of his history, but a light cutting forth toward a bright horizon filled with possibility. Embracing the spirit of determination, Charlie knew this was just the beginning of many transformational stories, yet unwritten. Stories of change ignited by resilience. You need to subscribe now to ensure you don't miss the next exclusive emotional stories. This is the moment to show your support for inspiring transformations, so leave a like now to feed the algorithm and propel these stories to the forefront. Comment your reactions and theories about Charlie's journey and share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to witness this remarkable conclusion. Don't wait even one more second to connect with those who appreciate the value of overcoming challenges. Let's continue to grow this community together.